Hello and welcome back to Restore 2023. We're in chapter 5 of Mark's Gospel today, which contains 3 remarkable stories of Jesus' power to heal and deliver people in a range of circumstances. The first important thing to note is that these stories are all set in an area inhabited largely by Gentiles or non-Jews. We can tell that by the fact that people were keeping large herds of pigs, an animal that Jews considered unclean. It's also an area under intense Roman occupation and domination. Rome, for many people, Gentile and Jew alike, would have been seen as the enemy, as the incarnation of all that was wrong with the world. So Jesus is very much entering an area that is considered enemy territory here in more ways than one, spiritually and politically. Likewise, each of the minor characters he saves in these stories is ritually unclean for one reason or another. The possessed man is unclean because he has been possessed by unclean spirits, but also because he's been contaminated by the tombs he lives in. The woman is unclean because she has a bodily discharge, and the little girl is unclean because, at least by the time Jesus reaches her, she will be a corpse. So the overarching narrative is the holy, healing power of Jesus breaking into enemy territory and liberating and cleansing those who have been trapped by oppressive forces. Let's look at the stories in the order that Mark presents them to us. The social and political domination of the land by the Romans is paralleled by the spiritual domination of the man by unclean spirits. No natural power has been effective at either healing or restraining the man, as we learn that he has often been chained up in the past, but had always managed to break his bonds with ease. This only makes it all the more amazing that the demons immediately recognise Jesus as more than a match for them, and submit to his authority without a fight. Instead, they beg him for mercy, and are allowed to pass into a herd of pigs, which immediately run into the lake and drown themselves. This must have absolutely been terrifying to witness, particularly for the herdsmen who were standing nearby who've suffered a major financial loss. But the incident symbolises the cleansing of all uncleanness from the land, a total rout of evil in response to Jesus' presence. I've often wondered why Jesus doesn't let the man stay with him after he's been healed. And partly I think it's because he has been cut off from his own community for a long time, and as part of the healing process, needs to be restored to them. But it's also because he needs to tell amongst his own people, non-Jews, what Jesus has done for him. In fact, N.T. Wright calls this unnamed man the very first apostle to the Gentiles, long before St. Paul started to use that title. There's another level on which this story has a profound significance too. Because, like the man he has healed, Jesus will one day end up naked and alone outside the town and amongst the tombs. He will one day too be tormented physically and spiritually on the cross and cry out just as the possessed man did. And this reminds us that the ultimate victory over evil will come when Jesus shares in the plight of the people he came to save. The rest of the chapter is known as a Markan sandwich. Mark has placed the story of the bleeding woman inside the story of Jairus' daughter, because in his mind they belong together and they complement one another, just like the filling of a sandwich complements the bread. Like the demoniac, both the bleeding woman and the little girl are beyond the help of any earthly power. All conventional means have failed them. Only Jesus' supernatural power can save them now, and it does, with the same ease that he cast out the unclean spirits. The way the woman's healing happens is a mysterious interaction between fear and faith. She has faith that Jesus can heal her, even just by touching his clothes, but too much fear to request it directly. Is she healed by her faith, as Jesus says, or by Jesus' power? In truth, it is both. Faith is the channel which allows Jesus' power access to her situation. And we can contrast this with the very next chapter in Mark, where Jesus returns to his hometown and seems to be unable to do many miracles, not because he lacks power, but because they lack faith. In the story of the little girl, we can see another picture of what Jesus will eventually experience by identifying with his people. Just like her, people will one day come to find his body so they can mourn over it, only to find him risen to life.